Did it not say we're live?
Oh, yes. I see it now. Sorry, I see it
Uh, it happens every time. Thank you for your willingness to play along.
now. Of course.
Alrighty, so for those of y'all who expect it, here's a little bit of my theme song. If I can do it, what's your excuse? What's holding you back or what's stopping you? Go on and do it. What's there to lose? If I can do it, what's your excuse? So, ladies and gentlemen, I am the blind blogger, Maxwell Ivy, and this is another episode of What's Your Excuse, where we hope to share actionable tools that will help you overcome the excuses that are holding you back. And before I get to my guests, I just want to remind you can visit me at theblindblogger.net. You can also find out about my work in the field of accessibility at theaccessibilityadvantage.com. I am a 59-year-old Caucasian male with retinitis pigmentosa or RP. I am almost totally blind with very little light perception. I have medium length brown curly hair with some gray and some white in it, brown eyes, and I'm wearing a button down dress shirt with a black tie. I'm recording this from my bedroom. My pronouns are he or him. And so today I'm very excited to have with me a woman who I think I'm going to learn something from because I've kind of gotten known over my career for showing up, but I think that's because there's so few of us that do it or do it well that those of us who even try to do it stand out. So my guest today is Marcy Axelrod. She is a best-selling and award-winning author, a TV contributor, a two times TEDx speaker and management consultant. Her latest book is titled How We Choose to Show Up. She shares about how we decide whether or not to show up and to what extent. And she will be revealing a roadmap for showing up more often and with more ease. You can find her at choosetoshow.up.com. Marcy, thank you so much and welcome to the podcast.
Maxwell, it is so amazing to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm honored to be in the presence of someone who not only has so much life experience, but also so much traditional educational learning, for lack of a better expression.
It's interesting because I've got the two diplomas behind me. Yeah, and so it's interesting that you reference that because you can't see them.
Well, a lot of the people I speak with, and my personal story leans heavily on life experience and
Yeah.
not much on traditional formal education. So
Mhm.
I'm working hard not to be intimidated by you, especially when I read in your bio that your work has been accepted and respected by Harvard and Yale and other
Right.
Ivy League universities. You know,
Right. Oh, it's interesting you mentioned intimidation. Max, we're all just people. And what my father, a very humble physician, taught me, he said, Marcy, we all put our pants on one leg at a time. And he had a lot of really amazing examples. He actually started the first department of nuclear medicine on the planet. It was at Harvard, which is why I grew up in Boston. And he said to me, Marcy, you don't want to be on my table. And by table, he was referring to the early PET scanners and MRIs and CT scans. He said, you don't want to be there. And he said, one day it's a janitor, the next day it's literally a queen, the next day it's someone in parliament, the next day it's a CEO, the next day it's a 7-year-old child. And he said, Marcy, everyone feels the same way. They're all afraid. And that's what he taught me. He said, every day, just know we're all feeling the same way. We're all human beings. And that probably was a big part of why I do the work that I do, right? We all choose how we show up, and yet we don't know that all the time. I'm not going to jump ahead on the chance you have questions, but I really just want to dispense with the intimidation aspect that you mentioned. We're all just human beings trying to do what we're supposed to do on this planet, right? Which I believe is enact care for each other.
Well, that's definitely proven out by the work you've chosen to do, by the fact that you've spent so much of your life trying to collect information and distill it, and then express it in a way that for that most people would be able to understand and act upon. So, we've already heard a little bit about your father. What are some of the other influences that of your early education and professional life that resulted in you being in the field of study and education that you're in now?
Yeah, well, my mother, who's a pediatrician, but let me just back up, because your question is really getting at who am I? And I think that often we answer who are you with a different question, a much more superficial one, which is what have you done? And this is a really important point, because showing up is about the substance of who someone is. It's not about whether you get to the top of some charts or whether you have achieved success as society defines it, right? Which is having possessions, which is looking a certain way, having a certain bank account. That's not anything that nature designed us to value. So I want to be careful to make sure that your listeners understand the question that I'm answering is the more valuable one, which is who am I and how did I become this way, right? Less what have I done? Is that okay with you?
No, that is totally okay, and that's in line with something that I often tell guests on this show, which is, as the host, I love it when the guest answers a better question than I asked.
Awesome. So I'll tell you what led me to become who I am. At age 6, both my parents kind of finished their postdocs at Johns Hopkins in Maryland, and that's when my father was offered this opportunity in Boston, and we moved. And what happened to little Marcy at age 6 when we moved is that my whole life disappeared, the life that I knew. And all of a sudden I'm in a new place with a new home. My parents are busy. My sister was older and kind of wasn't that attentive. And little Marcy wasn't getting the attention that she needed. So here's my big quote excuse, if you will, to refer to the name of the podcast. What is your excuse? Instead of acting out and saying, I need attention, I don't do that. So genetics and predisposition all came together and I started to stutter. I lost the ability to speak. So there I was in first grade now. And if the teacher asked a question and Marcy's hand went up, there was a collective emotion that swept through the class of, oh no, the teacher is going to have to call on Marcy. And you should see the teacher's face. The teacher's face was, yep, Marcy, she's a good student, her hands up. At some point, I'm going to have to call on Marcy. And it was like everyone's heart sunk. They both cared. So there was empathy and compassion, but there was also that cringing of she's not going to be able to get her words out. And I felt that so many times each day, and I couldn't stand it. And this was the seminal experience that over a few years, it turned my self lens, and I'll define self in just a moment because most people misdefine it or don't define it. My self lens went from facing me. So if you picture me, I'm cupping my hands toward myself. And now I am turning them outward. My self lens was too painful. So it turned outward. And the question became, how is everyone else showing up? Because I couldn't show up as I chose. And it was so painful. It defined my life. And right then and there, I became an avid disciple of how is everyone else showing up. And I was assuming they were choosing how they showed up. This is where we can talk about the cover of the book, how we choose to show up. The word choose is circled. That is the emphasis, how we choose to show up. And it's circled with almost a rainbow that goes from green to red, because there's a continuum of showing up on which we all live. And it goes from red to green or green to red, and we bounce along it all day long. If you're level 1, you're in the red, you're barely there. And we have to be there at some times. And that's when we're burned out, we're we're grieving, we're going through divorce, we're going through other things, or we're in the orange. That's just showing up, level 2. And you might think that's okay. It's what 80% of us, my research shows, do 80% of the time, but it's not okay. Because Max, we have an epidemic of mental health issues, of imposter syndrome. You mentioned intimidation, of people not feeling they can be real. This leads to feeling separate from, feeling anxious, feeling depressed, feeling all sorts of things that were not designed to feel at the degree, depth, and consistency that we do. So that's just showing up. And then level 3 is the green. Level 3 is truly showing up. And I can explain what that is. I can explain how it lives in our brain, in our body, in our social environment, in our life. So I'm going to stop there, but I think I've answered the, how did I become this way? That was age 6. And, by age 12, I was devouring every piece of psychology, then neuroscience, evolutionary biology, everything I could get my hands on that explained how are people showing up? How are they choosing to show up? I mean, people didn't use those words, but that's what I was studying. I also, just to kind of wrap this up, at age 12, I was sent to a rehabilitation hospital supposedly to learn to speak. That's not where I learned to speak. But really, there it hammered into kind of a somewhat older child. If there are people here in their 70s and 80s relearning to stand, to sit, to hold a fork, to feed themselves, to take a step, they have experts by their side. They have these well-made plans, and yet they struggle. And I said to myself, even people who know how they want to show up with a lifetime of wisdom, with experts by their side and well-made plans, still struggle to show up as they choose. And that's when I said, how could it be so hard, right? Where's the roadmap? Where is the blueprint? And I said, I'm going to find it. And that is this book that came out when I don't want to give my age, but let's just say in my 50s. So it took a while. The global studies on how people show up started in 1999. So I've got quite a few of them behind me now. But that is the journey. That's why I do what I do with, 100% of my time, basically, as I investigate and write about and speak about how people and societies and ideas and, everything shows up.
Right. So it is interesting for just as an aside for myself and my audience, and is that just how well you are navigating being audio descriptive so far. Most people don't do it as well as you've done it while talking. That's an advanced skill for most people who don't live with vision loss. So, but I find it interesting that you had a stutter that was how your mind and your body, and you talk about how most people do not choose, and I imagine that's especially true of children. But as I was hearing your story about them calling on you and not wanting to call on you, it reminds me of when I was a young person in elementary school and was already starting to lose my vision, and nobody really wanted me on their teams. And as a result, the teacher finally decided that she could solve 2 problems with 1 decision. She made me the kickball pitcher, and I pitched to both teams every day.
Oh, wow.
So nobody had to choose me. Nobody had to be saddled with me. But at the same time, they couldn't complain to the teacher that one side was making it harder on them than the other, because the same person was pitching to both teams.
Wow, that sounds really helpful.
Yeah, yes. Especially since I did not know that was in the background of her decision. It was just, she made it seem like, it would do me a big favor if I didn't have to solve these arguments every day on the playground. And so that was part of her decision. And when you said you were going to use the example of a rainbow, I figured there'd be at least two more colors, but we go from red to orange to green. And do we do this throughout the course of our day, or are there some people who pretty much stay stuck in one of those 3 colors, or get to and manage to stay fully in the color green their entire day?
Oh, no, you can never do that. So We and everything, by the way, I don't want to just talk about humans, because the tree out there, like everything moves up and down the continuum all day long. Some people wake up, they've slept well, they're a morning person, they prepared the night before, they wake up in the green, level 3, truly showing up. The first thing that they do is 5 things for other people. They feel great about themselves, then they go do a workout, right? But then at some point, they're burned out. You need a break. Maybe it's 10 a.m., maybe you haven't eaten or something. You need to walk around the block. You need nutrition. You need to just sit and close your eyes and breathe. So we all slide into some version of just showing up. It can be felt as an inability to focus, impatience, an inability to listen as well as you want to, starting to live more in assumptions, starting to feel like I've heard this, I know what the person's going to say. So basically you are presencing in a very left hemispheric way what the left hemisphere of our, so we have 2 modes of attention. Let me just talk about this now. This is the work of Ian McGilchrist, psychiatrist out of the UK, and it's extremely important. He pointed out that for humans to survive, we needed 2 completely separate ways of attending to the world. Why? Because we needed to eat, right? So you see the elk out there, you zero in, totally focused, nothing else matters, everything else disappears, and it's laser focused attention, and you need to get it, and you need to feed yourself. But the other mode of attention lets us not be fed to something else while we're focusing on getting that elk, right? So one is very narrow attention and the other is very broad. The narrow attention doesn't actually see the truth of what's going on, because it basically makes a model of the world. I know how the elk is going to run. I've really looked at it for 3 or 4 seconds. Now I'm going to project forward based on assumptions and based on my past. I'm going to project the past into the future. And I'm basically going to live in some kind of map, not the territory itself. The right hemisphere, which sees kind of the broad, the plains and the bushes way over there, and our next of kin that's in the tribe, a couple 100 yards back, it sees the big picture. It goes up to the mountain, right, and looks down and says, wow, so that's how things are connected across space and across time. So what level 3 is really, the green of truly showing up is all about, is really being able to live in that right hemispheric system more often. It only exists in a calm body state. If you're feeling like, I need to be seen as this great smart person, I need to impress this person, I need to look a certain way, I need to, like, I deserve X or Y, or I'm lesser than, or I'm better than. If you're in any of those kind of modern societal states, you're screwed, because you're not going to be able to truly sense the breadth and depth of what's going on in the moment. And what this means, Max, is that you will not be able to feel the other human beings around you. You will miss all the implicit language of their body. You will miss when they deeply sigh, what it's really meaning. You will miss, 90% of the communication going on, because it's all the non-verbal implicit things. And you will not be creative. You will not be able to do a good job. You will not help that person feel felt or feel cared for. You will not build trust. In fact, you will create mistrust. So the difference between level 2 and level 3 is absolutely a different life. Now, we have to go from the right hemisphere into the left. And so you see something new, you consider a new idea, and then you analyze it. That's on the left side. And then you're supposed to recontextualize it back into the right. That's what keeps you in the green in level 3. But what most of us do, because our calendars kind of force us along, I have a meeting at 3 and a meeting at 4, and I have to go here and I have to go here and I have to get this done. Because of that pressure or the rushing or whatever it may be, right? we get pulled into not just level 2, which is just showing up, this human doing mode, but we kind of spin. We kind of sit there and spin there. And then we don't sleep well, and then we don't eat well, and then maybe we have a drink when we shouldn't, or we do this or that, and we don't like ourselves, and then the voice in our head comes up too much, and we get stuck there. So this is really how levels 1, 2, and 3 work. We're constantly moving among them, and I'll tell you, Max, so is everybody else. And for the sighted people among us, you can see it. You can just look at someone and kind of know, are they low level 2? Are they up in level 3? For the people without sight, maybe you sense it in other ways. You sense the energy of someone. Is it calm? What type of presence are you experiencing from someone else? Tell me about that. I'd really be interested in hearing if you can kind of sense where someone is on the show up continuum.
Well, as I was hearing you explain, going back and forth between the broad outward looking and the more narrow focused, it made me think of one of the big challenges of having to depend on senses other than vision, because in many circumstances, in order to move through a physical location, for example, I have to focus in so much on what I'm doing that I don't have the ability to broaden my mind out and listen, or pay attention to the looseness or stiffness with which somebody is standing, and those sorts of things. I have friends who are deaf, who are depend mostly on sign language or interpreters, who tell me that sign language is such an intensely focused way of communicating that quite often they don't have the ability to take their focus away from the words that are being signed to think about the person doing the signing. So for me, like if I'm traveling in a location, whether it's familiar or unfamiliar, naturally it's more acute if the location is unfamiliar.
Right.
I'm more focused on my feet and my shoulders, and am I going to run into something with my head because I'm about 6'5", than I am focusing so much on the person leading me, or that I'm walking next to, or that I'm having a conversation with. Now, when I get to a destination, I'm told that I am really, really good in networking events, that I have the ability to connect with people of a wide variety of personalities and age groups, etc., and also that I tend to be able to have an effect on them. One of my favorite quotes was from a friend of mine named Joe Pardo, who says that Max may not see the people around him, but he opens the eyes of everyone who comes in contact with him. So I feel like I do really good when I'm in a position where I don't have to be concerned with my surroundings, and then I can, as you say, I can focus in on the people, the other cues that you get besides body language.
Right. Well, I really appreciate what you just explained, and I don't doubt at all that the deaf using sign language have to be so visually fixated on hands that they maybe miss some of the rest of the language of someone's countenance, that they that aren't immediately part of the words. My sense of what you pick up, though, the auditory probably has taken over part of your brain, such that you really do get a much bigger picture, and you sense the kind of level 3 caring, the open-heartedness that exists from the tonality of someone's speech, the cadence, the timbre. I find those to be so rich, much richer than the actual words.
Yes, I agree with you there. And considering that you are an expert in this field, there's another side of this I've always wanted to ask somebody about, and this is my opinion only, but I'll be curious to see what your response is. I believe that I have a more open approach to people in general, and that
Mm.
I meet more nice, supportive, helpful people along the way because I'm not distracted by my vision the way people who depend so much on their sight are.
Yeah. So just you, based on the experience of our emailing back and forth, I absolutely felt the warmth from you. I felt the care in the messages yesterday. And I'm not at all surprised at what you said, that you connect well. You are actually looking at me right now, and this whole time, this whole podcast, Max, more directly than most of the podcast hosts who I've interacted with, and they are sighted. And I often pause them and I say, wait a minute, I don't want to speak to an object. I don't want to speak to, your face looking down. To connect with you, I need to see into your eyes. There's actually, and you're doing that, Max. There are studies that show that when two people look into each other's eyes, and well, who can see each other,
Right.
their brain waves actually start to resonate. It goes from separate brain waves that aren't in sync into a single resonant wave. And this is called interpersonal neurobiology. And what happens is you literally become a single mind, maybe not a single person, but a single mind, even though you're two people. This research was done most recently. There were 99 people put in MRIs. It was in Japan, but the studies have been duplicated at Stanford, Harvard, and Cornell, and it's talked about in my book. So connectedness is a very real thing. It very much happens in one way, eye to eye, and when you're not sighted, my guess is they're through auditory and other ways. But
Yes.
people feel you and you feel them, and this is a
Right.
very real part of level 3 truly showing up.
Right. So I hate to. So it sounds to me like you're saying there's there is medical documented evidence for a reason behind the old expression of seeing someone across a crowded room.
Yes, but I want to mention the point I'm really trying to make. People are designed to connect with each other.
Yes.
Dacher Keltner, who's the head of the Greater Good Science Center, University of Berkeley. He's a professor of psychology there. He did an experiment where two people who don't see each other, they have a velvet curtain between them. One of them touches the other's forearm for a mere second. You touch the other person's forearm. And then with close to a 70% accuracy, the word out of your mouth is what they're feeling.
Wow.
And the likelihood of guessing right in this experiment was below 8%. And the emotions weren't, happy, sad, mad, glad. It was, nostalgia or jealousy. I mean, it was these rich compotes of emotion that have a lot of things mixed in. So the point I was making, we're designed to connect, not just through vision, but the entire body is a sensing system.
Yes. And so I don't want to disillusion you, but I'm going to have to, because from my family knew that I was going to lose most, if not all, of my vision from a fairly early age. And so from, say, the time I was 7 or 8 years old, on a regular basis, my dad taught me two things that he drummed into me on a daily basis. One has become one of my superpowers, because so few people are comfortable asking for help. He always said, Max, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right.
You're going to need people's help. People will want to help you. And if you don't ask for their help, it's going to take you more effort and longer to accomplish the things you want to do in life. The second thing he taught me was, Max, even if you get to the point where you can't see people, always turn to where they're talking,
right,
and look directly where you think their eyes should be.
Yep.
And the funny thing about that one is, back when my family was still operating a traveling carnival, and my thing during the opening hours was operating a kid's game. Many times people would come up to me and they would see my white cane and they would go, "Man, you're looking right at me. You obviously are faking with that cane. You can see, right?" And I got that a lot. But
Yeah, I don't
it
doubt
is practice, and maybe the fact that that I did get really good at it over time is it's something the body wants to do now that I'm hearing you
it.
explain it.
Right. I think it is. You very much, at least to me, you show up as a sighted person, and that probably leads people to connect with you um, as if you are, you know.
You know, that's very true. I quite often get reactions from people who know me where they will say or do things and then they catch themselves and go, "Well, Max, I forgot for a little while that you can't see." That
Right.
happens to me quite often. A couple of years ago, once even somebody tried to hand a book to me and open it up to a page so I could see the paragraph that they were trying to reference in our conversation.
That's really interesting. So if I could talk about book, is it okay if I describe some of the charts in the book? Because I think
Yes,
that
please
having
go ahead. In fact, you are, in my opinion, setting a great example for future guests of both my podcasts. That we really should explain and describe more because the vast majority are still listening more than watching.
right.
And for those people who are listening, they don't want to have to go check the transcript or to go watch the
Mhm.
video so they can um, appreciate. They may be able to get just enough out of your descriptions to
Right.
better follow your explanation in our conversation. And to me, that all leads to a better learning experience, a better podcast experience, a better audience experience, and that's how you build a loyal audience. So I definitely appreciate you. I appreciate you asking, but I hope that in the future more guests will just realize that this is the way it needs to be done, and that with all the people who are listening. As I like to say, podcast listeners, they can't see you. They are just as blind as I am. So why do we keep treating them as if they can see? So yes, please go
Right.
ahead with your descriptions.
Yes. So a big part of shifting from the get it done mode that dominates our days and leaves us feeling a lack of meaning, right? And leaves us feeling like a separate, isolated, disconnected self. Um, a big part of being able to leave that behind based on a choice and shift into level three, truly showing up, is pausing and simply being with someone else. What do I mean? I mean sensing them. If you can see them, just stand or sit there and just observe them. If you can't, just sense them in whatever way you can, with in an implicit way, in a tactile way, and just be with them. Because what starts to happen is you go from that kind of quick, judgmental, assumptive based mode of this person's a slacker. Why are they late? I know what this person's going to say. The bias of this person makes me feel judged. Whatever it may be, you go from that to then starting to notice. You notice more of the truth of what's going on right now. How is that person moving? Do they seem scared? Do they seem nervous? Do they seem tired? Do they seem sad? Once you notice, the body naturally kind of leans in. We tune in with whatever senses we rely on. So first we notice and then we tune in. Once we tune in, we start to feel with. And once you feel with, you enact care. And that's when you say, would you like a hug? Can I help you with this? I think I heard you mention X. How is that person doing? So there's a chart that shows us going from red into orange into green, and that's the transition. The specific words that I use are notice, tune in, feel with, enact care. And the story that typically goes with it, there was a gentleman who was staring into what to me seemed like his grandson's eyes, at this gym where I work out. And I mentioned to him how beautiful it was to like really be so deeply interconnected with someone, because that's how it felt to me. And this man, within about a week, he finds me online and he contacts me. And he says, Marcy, I can't get what you said out of my mind. He said, I have never felt I was truly present with anyone in my entire life. And yet you felt it. Can you help me? So I said, sure. I call this person Chuck because I tell this story because it really speaks to people. Chuck and I met at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, and he's telling me his story about he never felt safe in his childhood home. His parents would yell. To protect his brothers, he started to do this thing where the moment his parents started to yell, he would say, let's go out and play basketball. Let me help you with your homework. Oh, let's go do this other thing. And he would occupy people to create a sense of safety and take care of his younger brothers. So it was reinforced his entire life. So as a result of that, his whole life is designed around being needed and keeping all these balls in the air to protect and support other people. He ended up with 5 kids, of course, because now there's all these balls in the air and he's very needed. He ended up marrying a woman who has a very dependent personality type. So his entire life was designed around this. And he's endlessly rewarded for kind of stepping out of what's truly going on and creating another world somehow. So he was very happy that he had figured this out. And he looked at me and said, what should I do? So I said, there's a man at the table over there. Just look at that man. And he looks at the man in an instant. What a slouch. He should be at work. It's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. He's not responsible. And what came out instantly are assumptions and judgments and critiques and harshness, all based in some version of I'm better than and I deserve and you don't. So I said to him, Chuck, keep looking. So now he looks a little more, the tenseness in his body starts to loosen. And after a few more seconds, slightly longer than the first time, he looks at me and he says, the man doesn't look that happy. And he's really distracted. He's on his phone. He's not with this person sitting with him. And he thought that that's all there was. And I said, Chuck, keep looking, right? And you can do this also if you're sensing someone without sight. And now he was with that person longer and looked at them for a longer period, and his whole body just almost started to slouch. And he wasn't looking at me, and he said, this man's really sad. There's something wrong. And he started to create all sorts of reasons. Maybe the other person is his daughter and the mother's in the hospital and they're about to go to visit her and they're trying to figure out what to do. And he said, Marcy, I'm really sad. And as I say this, there's a tear coming to my eye. It always happens. And the tear came to his eye. And he said, do you think that person might accept a hug? They've got to understand, Chuck is one of these guys, he looks like he lives at the gym. He's got the bulging biceps and he's very tall and he's a good looking guy and he stands straight. And I said, if you approach it the right way and you say, I was just sensing maybe there's something wrong and I feel it. And like, would you like a hug? Maybe that's a fine way. But the point is he went from being in level 2, this get it done judgmental mode of living in an expectation and some kind of model of the world, right? What a slouch. The person shouldn't be here on a Tuesday at 11, right? Judging and making himself better than. He moved from that into noticing, into tuning in, then into feeling with, and then enacting care. And that is how you shift from just showing up into truly showing up. And you can do it just by settling your body, breathing, going outside, getting a little walk, being in nature, looking at others open heartedly. That's the key. And what you're really doing is you're switching from a left hemispheric mode where you're kind of stuck into being more agile and facile, right? And being able to engage that broader attention system, which is the only one that can read the language of someone's body or hear music as something that we kind of sway to or dance to, as opposed to some kind of like isolated set of notes of like boop, 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 which is how we hear things broken up as disconnected bits when we're in get it done mode. So I hope I've explained that's how we move up the continuum, and that's one of the key charts in the book.
Well, I think you did a great job of explaining the process, how we go up and down, and how you kind of, for lack of a better word, short circuit the process so that you can truly connect with more people. And when we connect with people the way you just described, it not only makes things better for us, but also for them, because as we change our opinion of somebody by looking at them or sensing them for longer periods of time, then we open ourselves up to many more interactions, conversations, friendships, relationships, etc.
That's exactly right. I mean, the more you are able to interact in level 3, the more it's your phone that rings when there's a new project and someone is needed, or it's your email that has the invitation to the event, or it's right, you're the one that people think of because you're breeding trust, and people will feel felt by you, and they will remember when they feel felt. That is how our memory works, right? It's based on something that you implicitly experience in your body.
Right, right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking with Marcy Axelrod. She is a best-selling and award-winning author, a TV contributor, 2 times TEDx speaker, and management consultant. Her latest book is titled "How We Choose to Show Up." You can find her at howwechoosetoshow.com. So, I have a few follow-up questions here based on my own personal experiences, and I'm looking forward to seeing if there's any research one way or the other. Okay.
Yes.
All right. One, I have to, before I get to those, I have to mention one other thing. Alex Sanfilippo, the founder of Podmatch, a very good friend, mentor, and client. People can find him at podmatch.com. The reason I bring it up now is because he is forever telling me, Max, I know you can't see the trees, but you would be shocked and amazed if you saw the effect it would have on your daily life if you would make it a requirement in your day that you go outside and spend a few minutes out in nature every day. So, Alex, once again, you're right. Alicia, I'm sorry, but I have to tell him when he's right, or it won't feel good to me. So I just wanted to mention that. So, first question: I have told people quite often that one of the things I love doing during the course of my day is having actual conversations with people. So I would prefer to have a short video chat or to do a podcast interview as the host or a guest, as opposed to sending emails, text messages, DMs, etc. Is that seems like that's in line with what you have been talking about as far as connecting with people?
Oh, absolutely. I pick up the phone instead of text. Yeah. And it's terrific. People know that they can count on me. I have a big hi. I keep it short. They don't expect it to be like a 20-minute call, right? So absolutely be in person to whatever extent you can, or phone. I mean, obviously not every time, but yeah, highly recommend.
Right. I created a 20-minute meeting for people just for those purposes. So, next up, you mentioned music. How when we're in the red section, or maybe even somewhat in the orange, that music is just certain groups of beats. We anticipate the music sounding a certain way.
Yep.
Well, I sing and write songs, and quite often when I sing other people's songs, I sing them in different keys because I don't have the range to sing the way a lot of those other people sing. So I'm curious what your thoughts are about the way I use music during the course of my day.
Oh, I loved the music that first of all, you have a beautiful voice. I found myself extremely attentive to it. It's very rich, and I love that you use music. I think that your auditory processing is probably extremely sophisticated, more so than sighted people. Absolutely, keep doing it.
All right, and then the one other thing I wanted to ask you about is pets, because for the longest time I had a great dog named Penny, and in fact I know this for a fact that my family was only willing to let me come in off the road and be here full time and work on my first website because the dog was going to stay with me. I know that I'm not as, or at least I feel that I'm not as productive now as I was when we had the dog, even though 3 or 4 times or more a day, the dog would interrupt me and basically say, you really need to put that stupid laptop away and scratch the spot that I can't reach on
Right.
the back here for me.
Yes. Yeah. There's tremendous research that pets, specifically dogs, lead us to be happier and healthier. So I couldn't agree more. It raises your oxytocin to care for pets and people, and that is a very good, healthy thing. And it'll definitely help to shift us from level 2, just showing up, into level 3, truly showing up.
Yes, the other thing that I really miss about my dog, and this any pet owner will know this, is our pets are great examples of mindfulness. They do not worry about what they're going to do 5 minutes from now.
Right.
They're only concerned about what they are doing right this second, and they could care less if it interferes with your plans for your day.
Right. That's exactly right. Yes.
You know,
And that's a really helpful thing. One quick thing, Max, that I wanted to add is that there's so much more in the book. And by the way, Mel Robbins, the number one podcast host on the planet, she's also the top female.
uh-oh, that ain't good. We lost somebody.
Skip to content. Link. Image. StreamYard logo. Skip to heading level 5. Marcy Axel. Edit live stream. Button. The Blind Blogger Facebook page streams.
Are you there?
Item chooser met 9:30 through 12. 1 item. Marcy Axelrod. Revealed. Marcy Axelrod. Reveals the roadmap to truly show. Edit live stream. Button. Group. You are currently on a button. Group. To click this button, press Control, Option, Space. Item chooser menu. 153. Not 30. 12. 1 item. Marcy Axelrod. Review closing. Item choose. The Blind Blogger phase. The Blind Blogger Maxwell IV cancel. Button. Restart. Pause. Button. End stream. Button. End of banner. Link. Image. StreamYard logo. You are item chooser menu. 30. 12. 1 item. Marcy Axelrod. Marcy Axelrod. Reveals the roadmap to truly show up more often. You are currently on a selectable text.
Well,
Item chooser met 6. 1 item. Pause. Button. Pause. Button. You are currently on a
okay, I think we've lost Marcy, and I'm going to pause the video so that we don't have too much open air like this, but hopefully I'll be right back with you.
StreamYard, Studio, Web Content, Item Chooser Menu, 11 items long description, Menu, StreamYard, Skip to Avatar, Mute Marcy Axelrod, showing up as a contacts, Mute Marcy Axelrod, more options, Menu, Marcy Axelrod, showing up as a contacts, Item Chooser Menu, 99, 36, 5 items, Marcy Axelrod, add to stage, button, add to studio.
Okay.
You are currently on a button. To click this button, dismiss alert, button. Solo layout, the host cam, Item Chooser Menu, 106, 2 items, cancel, button, cancel, restart, button.
So are you there?
Yes, I'm right here. And really quickly, the point I wanted to make is simply that.
Okay, hold up, I paused the video.
Cancel, restart, button. Restart the recording, and are you sure you
No.
want not yet? But restart
It is-
recording, start recording,
it is
not
live.
yet, button. Are you sure you want to restart this recording? You're heading level 4. Are you sure you want to restart this recording? Your current recording will be discarded. Not yet, button.
No, that ain't what I
StreamYard,
want.
Studio, Web,
You don't want to disregard that.
Scroll area. Item chooser menu, 20, calendar, widget, clear notification, closing, item chooser menu, Safari, the Chrome, StreamYard, item chooser menu, 106, 2 items, cancel, button, can't post comments to some destiny, cancel, Maxwell IV YouTube streams, cancel, restart, button, pause, button, end stream, button, end of, banner, link, image, StreamYard logo, end stream, pause, button, StreamYard, StreamYard, bookmarks, StreamYard, studio, web, item chooser, 7th, 1 item, pause, button, in tab A, U, F, E.
Well, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. but
Right.
it's
And
not
we don't
unusual.
want to discard,
It's not unusual.
disregard the rest of it. We can just end it before I said
No,
that.
no. Why don't you go ahead and finish your comment about the podcasting, and then we'll call it a day.
Okay, great. Yeah. So what I think is really important that I didn't mention, I mean, in the model, the book gives a model of how humans are designed to show up. And it explains that we're in 3 roles. And we didn't get to talk about this, but I mentioned you're not just a self. I define what a self is, but we're also members of a situation at every moment. And we're in a 3rd role as well, a member of something beyond ourselves, be it a family, a community, a religion, a social group of some. And when we move from level 1 into 2 into 3, we're living first just in the isolated self role. Then we also start to presence within our situation member role. And then we move into having a real impact on the world, which is our societal role. So, I mean, these are important things that are all in the book, and, it's helped to explain what I believe to be the truth about how nature designed human beings to show up.
Right, and I appreciate that. And from what I've been hearing today, it seems to me like the one thing that will really help us most of all is to give ourselves more time to look at the other people, to be present, and to allow those connections, whether it be sight, sound, scent, etc., allow those connections to help us get past the assumptions to the real person that may often be hiding in plain sight.
Right. And to connect with that person. And then you feel a sense of meaning in your life. And that's how it solves the disconnected, searching for meaning, kind of mental health issues, the fear, all of that. It really goes away when you truly show up. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Marcy. I really appreciate all you've had to teach us, and I look forward to seeing, just hopefully some of our audience will take the time to think about what you've brought up and to apply it in their lives. It does seem like the science, the research is finally starting to help us, but like anything else, we have to listen and apply. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You as well, Max, and I really hope that it's helpful for your listeners.
Well, I think it will be, but as I often say, Max learned something today, and that's a good enough reason to have a podcast.
Yeah, yes, and I have as well. No excuses, right?
No excuses. And just one last thing, you talked a lot about how people choose, which I often use the word decide. The whole no excuses thing comes from a life over the last 20 years where I set an example of deciding to find solutions instead of making excuses. So choosing, deciding, they're both really the most critical part of everything we do. I mean, after learning what I've heard you say today, people still have to decide to invest those 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever it is, to make that connection.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely. I differentiate between choosing and deciding. Deciding is the triangle that's with the point at the bottom.
Okay.
So what you're doing is taking all the options and you're going down to one and you're saying that's my decision. Okay. Choice is the opposite. Choice says there's all these options that are out there. It's very free and I can flow. So I'm going to choose right now to do this. And then tomorrow I can choose that and I can choose that. So one is about options and the world opening to you and perceiving the world, like receiving the outside world, while deciding is the opposite.
Well, maybe we can agree to compromise and go to the form of a rhombus, because over my career, I have gone from finding solutions where there was generally only one and it was not necessarily something I enjoyed doing, to realizing that I had more abilities and talents within me and finding more and more options. And then over time, getting to the point where I now have to tell people that there are certain things I'm not interested in trying or doing more of in the future, because I've gone from thinking I couldn't do anything or thinking I could only do one thing to thinking I can do just about anything within reason, to the point where I now have to turn down things because just because I can do them doesn't mean I want to or need to at this point in my life or career. So I feel like if we put both of ours right next to each other, we had us a rhombus, we'd have a good method.
Oh, that sounds fabulous, Max. I'm so glad you have so many opportunities. May everybody feel that way, right? Very rich with opportunity.
Well, they are out there, but we have to choose to invest the time it takes to listen to make that connection with ourselves and also with the people around us.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, now I'm going to really be angry in my neck. Now I'm really angry with the people at StreamYard or the internet or whoever's fault it was. But we still managed to have a great conversation. I feel like we've shared a lot of good information. And again, have a great rest of your day.
You as well. Thank you so much.
All righty.
Item chooser menu. One item.
Bye.
End stream button. End the stream. And 6 more items. And set not yet. End stream.